Ukraine Crisis Media Center continues its work, and now I give the floor to Mr. Alexander Hook, Principal Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, with weekly updates from the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. Mr. Hook, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you today from the Donetsk water filtration station between Yasinowata and Avdiivka. In many ways, this place has come to encapsulate the wider conflict in eastern Ukraine, in particular the continued belligerence of the sides, their refusal to fully comply with their commitments to cease fire, withdraw weapons and disengage, and their reckless endangerment of the civilian population. Here at these facilities, last week, an SMM camera recorded hundreds of ceasefire violations. Here, you can see just a sample of what our camera had been recording. Today, however, I wish to focus on two ceasefire violations in particular, as they tell an important story. The first, recorded at 2:18 a.m. on 15th November, was an explosion assessed as having been fired from a recoilless gun just 600 to 700 meters south from here. The second, recorded at 19:36 on 16th November, was caused by a rocket-propelled grenade or probable a portable anti-tank recoilless gun fired approximately 250 to 450 meters from here, near known so-called DPR forward positions. Lest anyone think I am apportioning blame, I am not. The OSCE SMM is not in the blame game. We establish facts. Another fact of note in this respect is that the Ukrainian armed forces have positions as close as 170 meters west of the filtration station, along this forest line to the west of the H20 road. And a fact of particular importance, a fact that those firing seem to have forgotten, is that there are around 100 people working at this facility, 100 people stuck between armed men and soldiers who refuse to cease fire or disengage. When the history of this conflict is written, it is the people working here and hundreds of others responsible for maintaining and repairing critical civilian infrastructure along the contact line who will be recognized as heroes. As you saw from the video clip, the workers of the Donetsk filtration station face immense danger on a daily basis. They ensure water to hundreds of thousands of people on both sides of the contact line with immense bravery. Instead of gratitude, however, the sides have given these workers fear, danger, and sometimes injury, and even death. And another fact, one that the sides also seem to have forgotten, is the presence of fluorine here at the Donetsk filtration station. Just 160 meters from here, and within range of the rounds fired last week, within range of both so-called DPR and the Ukrainian Armed Forces positions, are chlorine storage containers. Just 3 weeks ago, we observed damage to an above-ground pipeline used for transporting chlorine at the filtration station. It seems such near misses have not deterred those firing. They seem not to care about the enormous health and environmental consequences if a direct impact results in the release of chlorine. Dear friends, the ceasefire violations observed here last week were but some of those recorded all along the contact line. As we have been warning for some time now, the level of violence has been creeping up steadily. Last week, in fact, we have recorded a 60% increase in the number of ceasefire violations compared to the previous week. We recorded well over 9,000 ceasefire violations last week, the highest weekly number since mid-June. Around 30% of those ceasefire violations were in this area, the Avdiivka-Yassinovata Donetsk airport area. 20% in areas east and northeast of Mariupol, 50% in areas southeast and south and southwest of Svetlodarsk, 15% in the Popasno-Troitsky-Pervomaysk area, and 10% in the southwestern and western outskirts of Holivka. The fighting around Holivka was particularly worrying. It followed 4 weeks of relative calm, demonstrating that violence can erupt at any moment, any time, even in places where it is least expected. Violence there and elsewhere also demonstrated the urgent need for the sides to withdraw heavy weapons. So long as these weapons are in place, escalation is possible, if not likely. Alongside the increased number of ceasefire violations, the OSCE SMM recorded an increase in number in the use and presence of weapons that should have been withdrawn in accordance with the Minsk agreements. Last week, the OSCE SMM recorded about 360 instances of the use of such weapons, 130 artillery rounds, 185 mortar rounds, and 45 tank rounds, compared with the previous week, where we recorded 67 instances. We also observed 112 weapons in violation of their respective withdrawal lines, 99 in non-government controlled areas and 13 in government-controlled areas. The previous week, we recorded 52 such cases. Beyond the withdrawal lines, but outside designated storage areas, the SMM last week observed 265 weapons, 251 in non-government controlled and 14 in government-controlled areas. The previous week, we had spotted 23 in total. Dear friends, some colleagues and I were in Luhansk city yesterday morning, where we observed a calm situation with people going about their everyday lives and with a reduced presence of armed men and military-type equipment. On Tuesday, our monitors there had seen about 150 persons and about 30 vehicles, including armed personnel carriers. The SMM had on Tuesday also noted a convoy of military-type armored vehicles, trucks and armed men near the Balsove, and subsequently had seen what we believe was the same convoy near Vesela Tarazivka, close to Luhansk city. Dear friends, I do not wish to comment on the developments in Luhansk city. I would remind those involved, however, that the civilian population must be a priority. Already well over 400 civilians have been killed or injured this year, with another 6 added to the list last week, 2 of them killed in mine or unexploded ordnance-related incidents. As I came here today to the Donetsk filtration station, I was conscious of the need to remind those in effective control of their responsibility for the welfare of the civilian population. I saw unexploded ordnance littered everywhere, the positions of armed forces and the formations in close proximity, impacts from artillery and mortar rounds, and above all, here at this civilian infrastructure facility, recent evidence of disregard for the welfare of hundreds of thousands of civilians. In meetings this week in Luhansk and Donetsk, I conveyed my concerns. I can only but hope that all sides will act upon our concerns. I also, on the other hand, at this filtration station got to meet the wonderful people working here. I would like to thank them for hosting us today and for the work they do in maintaining the necessities of life for so many people on both sides of the conflict line. They are an example to all of us, and I hope an example to the sides of the conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Now it's time for questions, and dear colleagues, you are welcome.
My name is Channel 24. Is the information that you meet yesterday with Zakharchenko? You can report on the content of the dialogue and the end of the meeting.
Yes, I can confirm that the SMM has met yesterday evening Mr. Zakharchenko in Donetsk City. We have been discussing the safety and security of our monitors and assets, as well as the findings of the Special Monitoring Mission with regard to the adherence to the Minsk agreements. The SMM is always available for dialogue for anyone who wants to participate in it in good faith.
Next question, please.
Crimean News. On Wednesday, surprisingly, you came back to Lugansk. I would like to clarify, did you attempt to meet Mr. Plotnitsky after your previous meeting and after those well-known developments in the Lugansk city? And the second question is, it has been reported that on the 21st of November, through the unsecured border area between Ukraine and the Russian Federation, a convoy of Russian hardware, 12 BTRs and Ural trunks, part of which deployed to Lugansk. Can you comment on this movement as well?
Thank you for your two questions. With regard to the second, based on our observations, we cannot confirm the allegations that you just made. With regard to your first question, it is correct that I had been in Luhansk after I have left there on Tuesday, back on Wednesday. We had signaled to anyone who is willing to enter in a dialogue with the SMM that the SMM would be available, and we continue to make it very clear that ultimately this conflict can only be resolved through dialogue.
Thank you. And the third question, please.
Good afternoon, Margarita Trofimova, Irtachen TV channel. My question is, what is happening in the Lugansk city? There is official information that provocations are planning some alleged shelling, and it would be blamed to the UAF. And one more question, that there are no payments for the civilians in the city. They cannot get their money. Can you confirm also this information?
The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission has resumed patrolling activities in the Luhansk region beyond government control. Findings of their work can be found on our website. With regard to the situation at the moment in the town, we continue to observe an overall calm situation, though still noting the presence of unidentified armed men and military hardware in some locations of the town. As I've mentioned before, we urge everyone involved to make the health and safety of the civilian a priority, and the mission will continue to document the situation as observed in the Luhansk region, but all along the contact line too.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Dear colleagues, do you have more questions?
Valery Vokto, Digest. Alexander, when we talked to you in Odessa, I had a question. The access of OSMM to all the areas that are not controlled by the government in Donetsk and the Lugansk region. So I think that the situation has been changed. Do you have access to all the non-government control areas? And the second question about the thematic report on the freedom of movement of the SMM in Donetsk and Lugansk region.
The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, through its mandate, is obliged to report any restrictions of its freedom of movement, and we do so on a daily basis. All of these restrictions catalogued can be found at the bottom of our daily reports that are being made public in 3 languages every day on our website. We do have restrictions on both sides of the contact line. Some of them are caused by static obstacles such as minefields or other road obstacles, and we have them on both sides of the contact line. Active, direct interference with our freedom of movement occur to the vast majority in areas beyond government control. For instance, the town of Siedove or Novoazovsk down at the close proximity to the unsecure border with the Russian Federation are vicinities where we do face these problems. We continue to patrol in all areas of Ukraine, including those that are currently beyond government control, and we would restrict ourselves only where the sites fail to ensure our safe and secure passage. Once again, any restrictions that we encounter are being reported and they can be found at the bottom of our daily reports that are being made public.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. And the final question for today.
A clarification question. In the occupied Lugansk region, does the SMM observe any changes in the Stanitsa Lugansk area or in the Lugansk region? Do you observe any increased civilian flows? Probably there is some kind of tension among the population.
Based on our observation, we had been reporting earlier that the situation has been and remained overall calm in Luhansk city. I had the chance to join a patrol to the damaged bridge at Stanitsa Luhanska and had been interacting there with civilians as well. That was on Monday. And I can report back that the civilians are tired of queuing over this damaged bridge. Among all things that need to be done is the repair of this bridge that should be at the top priority list of everyone involved. We will continue to make ourselves available to facilitate the necessary dialogue, but it is a question of will on either side of the line that this bridge is getting repaired. The fate, once again, the fate of all civilians, regardless of which side of the contact line, should be on top of the priority of all decision makers.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. It seems we have no more questions for today. See you here next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.